Okay, hey everyone. This is Englandia. Um, I'm hosting and recording the Zero Governance call on short notice. So Edan Yago will not be joining us. I just found. Um, but if anyone here had topics they would like to discuss or bring up, that would be highly appreciated. Um, we want to have these recurring meetings, at the beginning of the opening of the Zero Protocol to the public on the Sovereign app, and with that takes some monitoring and some management in the initial growing pains stage in maintaining the dollar peg. So with that, we have to watch closely. We have to monitor the parameters that we set and make sure that they're meeting our standards. So does anyone here want to bring up anything in particular?
I'll just start with an observation or two and then a question. It looks like that the peg is staying pretty closely in line with the XUSD, um, as long as we think of it in terms of RBTC. And so I don't see that there's really much value in redemption right now, and that's being reflected in the fact that there haven't been any redemptions in several days now. So all that looks good. I think it'll take people some time to become less wary about holding a line of credit and having it, the fear of having it redeemed against. Um, but I think this is a good step. And I guess my question would be, I don't know who can answer this. Maybe Light, if you know the answer. Are we actively arbitraging or actively uh, adjusting the price of RBTC dollar using trades in the AMM right now to keep it in line with XUSD?
So there's a Exchequer runs a watcher node to assist with balancing the pools, and as
So that was a
as far
question
as
for
I
Light.
know,
I see you're unmuted, but
yeah,
I
I
can't
am
hear you.
talking.
He's
Hello,
speaking.
hello. Can you? So you all can hear me, but one digit can't for some reason. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a strange pickle to be in. Hold on one second. I'm gonna message him out of band. Since it was him who asked me the question, I'm just recommending to him that he maybe drop and rejoin. Hey, one digit. Can you hear me? Huh. Okay. Well, I'll try to answer the question for everyone's benefit, and yeah, he can listen to the recording afterwards. I can't speak authoritatively to this because I don't I don't I'm not involved in that part of the operations. But as far as I know, Exchequer runs one of the watchers and participates in helping with the rebalancing of the pools. And one of the things that they've been trying to do is to keep the sovereign dollar pool in line with the other stable coins. So there has been some accumulation of sovereign dollars to do that. I don't know the exact amounts, and unfortunately, I think nobody on this call has that information either. So we'll have to maybe revisit this once someone familiar with those operations can report those specific amounts. But yeah, I think that's all the information that I could give to that particular question. So, short answer is yes. The exchequer is accumulating sovereign dollar to some degree.
As collateral in zero and on the other, the ZUSD added by Mint in dollar. If so, aren't you adding both sides improperly? Light, do you want to take a stab at this?
Sure. Yeah, on the question of the sorry, what was the first question?
It's in the community chat. So, what would happen if Exchequer stopped buying sovereign dollar? How much budget can it devote to it?
Oh, right. Yeah. So I think that's related to one digits question. And like I said, I don't know those specific numbers. I think they are relevant to
Right.
I think this whole conversation because depending on how much money from the treasury Exchequer is willing to dedicate to buying DLLR off the market can tell us, how liberal or conservative we want to be about the changes to the parameters of the system, because we can afford to maybe give a little bit more slack, or we need to tighten things up, depending on how much money they're willing to dedicate to supporting the sovereign dollar price with the treasury. And so, yeah, I think that's a kind of critical metric to understand. So definitely that should be shared whenever they report on finances, or even sooner, because these parameter adjustments are we having this meeting weekly now to discuss these parameter adjustments. So I think that would be good to know. With regards to the second question, so the zero TVL has been on the sovereign dollar, or excuse me, the sovereign alpha homepage for a while. It includes the RBTC that's locked as collateral, as well as the USD in the stability pool. And the Mint TVL is comprised of the ZUSD and the DOC that's held in the Mint aggregator. there was a question about, is this an improper accounting of the TVL? I think this is probably a subjective question, but I think there's a good reason for answering no, that this is not an improper accounting, because if that ZUSD wasn't being held by Mint, then it would be, it could theoretically be held somewhere else, whether in an AMM pool where it would be counted towards the AMM's TVL, or maybe in a bridge where it would be counted towards the bridge's TVL. So because the ZUSD is being held in this contract, and that contract is part of the sovereign system, it's part of Sovryns TVL. So I think it's a perfectly fair accounting of the TVL there. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
There could be
totally open to
there
hearing
could be
other
some
perspectives.
counterpoints, right? Like if we had like 100 wrappers for one stablecoin that had 1 million in TVL, and saying we had 100 million TVL because it's in a bunch of wrappers, it would kind of be not telling it wouldn't be telling the whole truth, right? I mean, I can understand for for two contracts the way they're being utilized, maybe adding them together. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I do want to add in something.
I think if you start playing shell games like that, it pretty quickly becomes obvious that it's you're not actually, like, these contracts, they're not providing any sort of like new functionality or any sort of like novel value which should be counted as like value locked. It's just, yeah, you're just double counting or triple, whatever, quadruple counting the same underlying assets at that point. But in this case, it's two separate protocols that each have distinct purposes that just happen to be governed by the same system.
Okay, so Lactaris, I hope that was a satisfying answer for now. But if you have additional questions, feel free to speak up or type it in the community chat.
I think David had some comments. David, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to circle back to the original question about what Exchequer is doing to manage the peg, and I just wanted to confirm that Exchequer is in fact buying dollar using RBTC in the AMM pool in order to support the peg. I think that's something that's probably costing Exchequer maybe about like not costing necessarily, but that they're swapping probably at least $100,000 a week. So it is decent sized numbers, but that's being done in order to support the peg, and then hopefully in the next several weeks or so we'll start adding some of the more other features, whether it's like the Babelfish dynamic curves or stability pool or lending pool, and then hopefully we can kind of start getting back to this supply-demand imbalance. But to answer people's questions, yes, Exchequer is temporarily supporting the peg that way, so redemptions do not happen.
I think that's an important point to emphasize, is that, like, this Exchequer support here isn't actually required to support the peg. Because the redemption is kind of the last, like, backstop. Effectively, zero line of credit owners are the buyers of last resort for ZUSD. And so they create a kind of like hard floor on the price of ZUSD. It's just that I don't think anybody wants the line of credit holders to have their collateral redeemed. And so because they're kind of like locking their collateral up so that they can borrow against it without having to sell their Bitcoin. But if they become forced sellers of Bitcoin in order to buy ZUSD, then kind of defeats the purpose. And so at this early stage in the game, when Zero has sovereign dollar has relatively low liquidity, Exchequer is, I think, saying like, well, we can use some of the treasury to like provide some liquidity to ZUSD borrowers / sovereign dollar holders, and try to prevent or delay redemptions until such time that the sovereign dollar market has a kind of organic and sustainable supply and demand dynamic. And as David mentioned, there's a bunch of different initiatives going on to support the demand side of the equation. We'll have to continue checking in these meetings and seeing how effective those are at kind of more organically supporting the price of sovereign dollar. Well, I was looking at some numbers, some different numbers, which are the redemptions and originations on Zero. So there have been redemptions have been relatively sparse. Like ever since the increase to 5% on the March 25th for the origination fee floor. There's only been one redemption, and it was a relatively small one. It was like a $12,000 redemption. And on the origination side, we've continued to see originations. So there has been, let's see, on March 25th, the ZUSD supply was 7.82 million. And as of today, the ZUSD supply is 8,017,000. It doesn't necessarily tell us what the net supply difference is. So there could have been some debt repayments that offset issuance. But in any case, we see that net ZUSD supply growth was around 180,000 ZUSD. This is compared to the previous period of in the 2.5% origination fee floor era, which started on March 16th and ended on March 25th. So on March 16th, the ZUSD supply was about 7 million. By March 25th, it grew to 7.82 million. So that was a growth of about 820,000. And then from the 25th until today, we've seen a net growth of about 180,000. So it's like it's a 75% less growth over a similar period of time. Nonetheless, almost all of that sovereign dollar or ZUSD has gone to the AMM and been sold. So because the sovereign dollar price has continued to hover around $1, that would tell me that most of that net growth has probably been purchased by Exchequer. I think we would have to run the numbers for Exchequer's purchases, but based on the numbers that David Soroy was mentioning earlier, almost a couple 100,000 sovereign dollars being absorbed sounds about right. So that means that currently almost all of the growth in Zero is being absorbed by Exchequer, and we'll have to see how much more they can do for that. But what it indicates to me is that even at 5%, people are still continuing to borrow. And so, and that growth is just being absorbed by the Treasury. And so, personally, I would not change the fee, and would even consider increasing it to continue slowing inflation until organic demand is able to catch up to the rate of supply growth.
So given that we don't know how much non-exchequer sovereign dollar or ZUSD has been minted, I mean, there's a chance that the supply would have shrunk without the interactions from exchequer, right? And the stable coin
Is Exchequer minting ZUSD?
or maybe I think they're purchasing actually.
Right. It's being purchased from the AMM. So it's not that Exchequer is pledging collateral and borrowing against it. They're simply just going to the AMM and swapping some of the Bitcoin on our balance sheet for dollar.
It's hard to work without numbers in front of my eyes, but if the exchequer weren't purchasing sovereign dollars, the peg wouldn't have held as well, right? I'm just trying to interpret what the 5% means. I guess it means that the supply is being more controlled, but the peg is holding much better with the 5% origination fee. Is that like safe to conclude? It's a question for anyone out there. I'm sorry to the handful of people who aren't able to hear us or hear light because they're on mobile, but I'd suggest updating your mobile app to see if anything changes, or if you're near a desktop, trying your desktop Discord. But back to my question: is everyone else in favor of keeping the 5% origination fee? Can we get some ayes or nays?
For the time being, I'm fine with it. I probably deviate a little bit from Light's perspective that over time I would probably like to see that fee drop sooner than later, but I acknowledge we probably can't do that until we have some of the things like the stability pool and the lending pool and more demand for dollars. So for now, it's whatever a yay is to keep it, but I'd like to keep our kind of eyes on the prize of I personally don't think it should increase or stay this rate for an extended period of time.
Anyone else? Anyone else in favor of raising the origination fee?
Height on this side. I would say it would be good to leave it as it is, at least for a weekend, and take a look how things are next week.
Okay, cool. Maybe in future calls we'll have more clarity um, on the exchequer's allocation of funds into maintaining the peg, as well as making it easier for everyone and maybe having some numbers prepared and displayed visually so we can have some reference points. So yeah, this is a growing process, and um, if there's no other topics, we can adjourn this call and just continue to monitor and discuss the performance of the sovereign dollar, um, especially before the deployment of lending pools and and other potential avenues for creating demand for the sovereign dollar. So last chance, anyone to bring something up before we adjourn?
Discord actually kicked me out. So sorry if I missed a couple of minutes of audio. Could you perhaps summarize again, Englandia?
Oh, sure. Um, I was basically asking if anyone had any thoughts on maintaining the origination fee the way it is now, or even raising it before the lending pool launches. Um, and I was just about to adjourn the meeting if there are no other topics.
Okay, so at least from the folks that are on this call, it seems like the consensus is hold at 5% origination fee floor.
Certainly hold it for another week. That would be my vote. Um, I'd be curious to see just how much resources from Exchequer are being um, exhausted for trying to hold the peg, and yeah, maybe experimenting with less dependency for one of the uh, for one of the future weeks. So it looks like the consensus is hodl the fee at 5%.
Okay, I think that idea you just mentioned about going a week without um, the Treasury or Exchequer support would be an interesting way to see how the fee increase works on its own. Because I think they've been doing this ever since it was increased to 5%. So it's hard to see exactly what the effect on 5% is, other than that we can see that originations have continued to happen. But if the peg had been suffering at the same time, it's hard to know if those originations would still have happened, or if people would take that as a signal to
Right.
not borrow.
For all we know, 5% might not be high enough without the Exchequer's help.
Right.
Okay, so keep it at 5, but maybe um, take some measures to experiment with just less dependency and, with the openness towards raising if it's still not high enough. So yeah, very interesting. Lactarius asked which address was Exchequer using to buy sovereign dollar. I don't have that information, but I can ask just after this call and get that answer to you as quickly as possible. Yeah, thanks for asking, Lactarius. Piatti said we need a strong reduction in the rewards. I read that this is on the schedule by Yago, but when are we going to see a significant reduction? I'm not sure that that's pertinent to this particular call.
I think there's a circle of tokens category in the forum. If it hasn't been mentioned there already, perhaps you could pose the question there. Because that seems to be where the circle of tokens does most of their organizing around liquidity mining rewards.
Okay. So, last round for questions before I close out. Okay, so I'm going to adjourn the Zero Governance meeting number 3. Thanks everybody for joining and participating in this discussion. I'll have the recording out within a week or so. Apologies for the technical difficulties for a handful of you guys, but let's continue to monitor the performance of Zero and the sovereign dollar, and have a good holiday as well. Happy Passover to all of you, and stay sovereign.
Sovereign.